The Game Awards 2024 just wrapped up, and I wanted to give some of my initial thoughts and reaction to the show. And tomorrow for Newswave, I'm going to do an entire cover of this, so like line by line, all of the big things that were announced and some of the smaller stuff. But for the most part, actually looking at this show, you know what? I think Jeff Keighley did a pretty good job with it, and I'm going to go over some of that here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. So first thing, we did have the pre-show, and then we also had the main show. And the pre-show had some pretty cool announcements. Again, check in tomorrow. I'll go through all of that. But then we got to the main show, and the first thing I noticed as we were going through, it actually flowed pretty well. So there are many times where you would have an obvious commercial, or you'd have like the world premiere thing pop up. And in this case, none of that really happened. In fact, I was having a hard time just going through it and trying to pick out what was an ad and what was like like a world premiere. Now, technically, they're all advertisements, but you get what I'm saying. Things that were paid ad spots for a gotcha game or just a discount on a game that's out now, and you'd eventually figure it out as you're going through. But initially, it was like everything was flowing pretty nicely, which in turn made the show feel like it had decent pacing and didn't overstay its welcome, although it was still 3 hours. But I think just in general, the announcements that were here, kind of the pacing, it seemed to go along pretty well. That said, there were still some kind of lulls in there and some low points that I'm sure people were, I'll say, falling asleep, but kind of tapping their foot a bit, looking around. So I did highlight a couple of announcements here, and then also we'll talk about the Game of the Year winner at the end. But they did show Witcher 4, and we already knew that the new Witcher game was in development. It went into like full production like pretty recently, actually, as they had mentioned, like a month or two ago or something like that. So it's not something we're going to see come out anytime soon. And in fact, they showed it as like a CGI trailer, and it looks like Ciri is the protagonist here and stuff. So Witcher fans seemed very, very excited to at least get their first real look at this. And from what I remember, this is being developed on Unreal Engine. So maybe that means that the production won't take as long as if they were using like their internal engine or any of that. But then we went into Elden Ring Night Rain. And I think when they first showed this, it kind of looked like it was just going to be like another Elden Ring DLC, right? Like, okay, so this is just another expansion that's attached to it. That's fine. But then they started to show off more elements to it that seemed to really incorporate co-op. And in fact, it got to the point where it's just a standalone game. And it seems that you're going to be partnering up with a couple of people even, as they showed, I thought, multiple people on screen at once. But this, I think, is the step in the right direction for what's becoming almost like a franchise now with, I guess, Elden Ring, right? With Night Rain. And go to the next level of, hey, originally you would call people in to help you at certain phases in the game, or some people would invade and take you out and stuff, or you'd fight back with them. But this kind of looks like Elden Ring meets Monster Hunter a little bit, in the sense that they have some pretty large enemies that you'd be fighting, big bosses, and they seem like they're more designed to expect multiple people fighting them. Because the bosses in Elden Ring now, for example, you can have people come in, but the bosses aren't necessarily designed to have a bunch of people fighting them at once. And in fact, that's one of the ways you can kind of cheese things. And for the longest time, something like the Mimic tier, right? That was a great way to make it almost easy mode for fighting some of these bosses. But the way they were showcasing them was a lot of area effects and be able to attack multiple different directions at once. Kind of seemed like they would at least be set up to mechanically work with multiple people fighting. So that looks cool. 2025, man. They are not messing around at From Software. You can kind of see why Sony is, while it is a lot of the anime stuff, sure, but I'm sure Sony, I'm sure, is excited to try to get FromSoft under their control as well there. I'm going to jump ahead to Virtua Fighter and also Project Century. RGG, man, they're going crazy right now. So they not only showed off that they are indeed working on the next Virtua Fighter, but then they just introduced a brand new IP. Or it's just a code name for it now, Project Century. Still looks like that RGG Like a Dragon sort of style, but they keep churning out content. They're very good, while it is a lot of them, along with FromSoft, kind of recycling assets and stuff. I mean, they dress it up in a way that it looks very, very interesting to the fan base that have been following them like completely. So, the fact they're doing Virtua Fighter and Project Century, that's pretty impressive, especially since they have the Pirates coming out in February, just a couple of months. So that's the thing I like about them. It's not, you have to wait 6 or 7 years for the next game. It's like, a new one's coming out almost every year with them. And we have Turok Origins. We get a new Turok game too. It was like third person and stuff, but I'm interested to see what Saber can come up with here with a new age Turok game. I think that could be kind of cool. They showed some shots of gameplay towards the end, but they didn't really have a really in-depth look as to what we can expect from this game outside of just, as you would expect, shooting not only other people, but also dinosaurs and stuff they're attacking. 2 big announcements at the end. One definitely surprised a lot of people, and that was Okami. So there's just a new sequel. They didn't have a name for it, just Okami sequel, and it was presented really, really well with the nice kind of like the painting style and stuff on the big screen. You had the drums going, and it was a pretty cool presentation, and the crowd did react to it as you would kind of hope they would. But it's been a long time coming to have this sequel. People have been pestering Capcom for quite some time. Hideki Kamiya left Platinum Games last year or earlier this year. I think it was last year, right? And it seems like he's going back to Capcom, partnering up with working with Capcom again. And in fact, he's actually started a new studio now, and that's Clover's Studio. Remember, we had Clover Studio before. This came Clover's Studio, and it's kind of interesting to see Hideki Kamiya now working again with Capcom after seemingly all the back and forth that happened before, which does make you wonder if, okay, we have this Okami sequel that happens probably years still into the future, right? But what else could come of that? I guess that revisited partnership now. So certainly an interesting development here, and we'll have to wait and I guess hear more from Hideki Kamiya when he's ready to speak, because the one thing about him is he has no problem getting into interviews or even just throwing stuff up on social media. So I'm sure he'll be sounding off on this one pretty soon. And then we had Naughty Dog. So originally we had them kind of troll everyone during the stream. They announced The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered going to PC, and everyone, I'm sure, let out a collective groan, because it was like, is that why Neil Druckmann's there? Is that what he's doing? He's going to talk about The Last of Us Part 2 PC? Not quite. They did show off, at least make an announcement for their new title. It's a new intellectual property from Naughty Dog, and they ran down all the stuff that they've worked on previously, even giving shout-outs to things like Jak and Daxter or Crash Bandicoot. But this is Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. It's been in development since 2020. And we've kind of already known that anyway, as it seems like Neil Druckmann's been talking about that, wanting to talk about it, kind of alluding to it, but can't quite say, yes, this is what it is, right? So, I like this for Naughty Dog in the sense that it's very different from a lot of the other things that they've worked on. This kind of like that retro sci-fi look, as you see the person up in space in their ship, seemingly going after someone, I guess. So a bounty hunter maybe is what they are. I didn't give too much context to some of the conversation they were having other than just, hey, call it in, I'm going to go get this person. And they showed a very quick glimpse of some of the combat that looked more action, third-person oriented, and again, is all presented really through like CGI. So it does become kind of difficult to figure out what the gameplay loop is going to be, but we do know that it's Naughty Dog, and they really like kind of their narrative-driven experiences, high-quality presentation. So, I mean, I'm interested to see how far they're going to push things with this sci-fi, seemingly space title. Like, are we going to be going to all different planets? Is it going to be a situation where you have intergalactic travel? Is it this big open world style thing or open universe thing? Hard to say, but seems like they're trying something new. And since recently it's been a lot of kind of dark and gritty stuff with The Last of Us, I welcome kind of this shift in tone just to see what they can do with some of their creativity and high production that they have and have certainly developed over time with some of the other games. Now, at the end, we did have Game of the Year, which Jeff definitely delivers on the music at the end. It's really well done. Even like Flute Guy was there. It was a lot of fun, right? But at the end, it was indeed Astrobot that took home the grand prize. In fact, I think Astrobot, for all the categories it was in, that does include Family Game, which typically Nintendo wins. In this case, Astrobot was too much to overcome. Astrobot did win Game of the Year, and seemingly all the other categories I guess it was nominated for. So, hey, I say well-deserved. It's an awesome game. I think it resonated with a lot of people. And while it didn't necessarily, I guess, sell as much as some of the other games that were in that category, like obviously Black Myth Wukong was absolutely ridiculous in terms of sales. I'm good with the game of the year. I think it makes a lot of sense, and that's actually the one that I picked. So we did like Click R3, and I think I told Ryan Astrobot will take home game of the year, and indeed it did. There's of course going to be arguing back and forth online about whatever was going to win game of the year, but I think most people can kind of look at this and go, yeah, it's fine. Astrobot works for me. So hey, you know what? Overall, not a bad show, like I said, from Jeff Keighley. I think he did pretty good here. But we're going to go over all of this, again, line by line in Newswave tomorrow morning. So make sure you tune in for that, and we'll see what we have there. But let me know what you guys thought about the show down below. Just some of my initial thoughts and reactions to what we saw here. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.